Travel.radio.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Brian. Yes, I'm really excited for today's interview. I am joined by Susann Schuettloeffel. I hope I pronounced that right, Susann.
Very well, yes.
She is one of our avid travelers. She has done not 5, not 10, but more than 15 adventures with Gadventures over the years. So Susann, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, 15 trips, you obviously a really big adventure fan. How did this journey start for you?
Well, I started traveling with Gadventures, I believe it was in 2014. And I just realized I want to travel more further, leaving Europe finally. And then I was just, because I was traveling on my own, I was a bit anxious, even though I'm not really afraid of, moving out. I was just looking into, getting to know a company that sort of like introduces me to places I've never been before. And so I just basically Googled companies like that offered experience, especially for younger people. And then that's how I discovered Gadventures.
Amazing. And that was back in 2014, I think?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it should be, so 7 years now.
And it's so funny, you're not actually sure how many trips you've done, but you think your first trip was Costa Rica.
I don't know how many trips I've done in total, but I'm fairly certain that the first one was, it must have been Costa Rica. Yeah, I'm fairly certain.
As you say, as a young, solo female traveler, your first big adventure going across to Central America, what were your expectations?
I didn't really have like clear expectations, because what I'm doing is like I'm trying to just go and see what the country is like. I'm not really having a picture in my mind what it's going to be like, because I always feel like it's better to just experience it the way it is and not really, putting some sort of imaginary pictures on it. And it's just I just go, and I guess I just go with the flow and see just experience it. But then again, because it's far out, and it's it's language wise, I didn't speak Spanish by the time. I don't really do speak Spanish now, but I sort of like get along a little better. But so that was the main reason why I chose to go with the company in the first place.
So that was your first introduction to what we call a small group tour.
Exactly.
So what was it like? What were the travelers like? What was the experience like? Obviously you would have a Gadventures chief experience officer, or what we call our tour leaders there as well. How was that whole experience for you?
It was interesting because it was sort of like unexpected. So the group was very mixed. So you would have people from, first of all, different countries. You would have people of different age, and some were traveling solo, some were traveling as a couple, some were traveling as being friends. So it was really a mixed group, and that was actually quite nice, because you could hear all kinds of different experiences from the people, and the things they have experienced on previous trips or within this specific trip. And so that was nice. I really enjoyed that. And the CEO, I do believe he was it was one of his first trips, so he was very eager to really help us get a very good experience out of the trip. And so he was a lovely guy. I don't remember his name, but it was a great experience. It was again, I didn't really have expectations, but it was still sort of like unexpected, because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And
No, absolutely. I think, one of the things that we hear time and time again from our travelers is that that group experience and getting to know different interesting people, you're not only learning about the destination that you're in, but you're learning about the different nationalities and cultures of all the travelers you're with, right?
Exactly. It's sort of like many little trips within one big one, because you hear the personal stories of the people. They also bring in different travel experiences, and you're always leaving with so many ideas and inspirations on where to go and what to do next. And yeah, that's sort of like really adds to the experience.
Well, you clearly got the bug, because you went on and did 14 more trips. So
I think so, yes.
14-ish, yeah. So, I mean, across all of those different trips, what were some of the highlights, the best destinations that you've visited, some of the best experiences?
So the best experience were actually the ones that really focused on the local community. So I think one of the local sort of like local living trips I did was hiking. That was again in Costa Rica a couple of years later. And we went on staying with a family who then accompanied us, staying, in different little places along the hike. And that was really nice because you sort of became a bit of a member of the family. So they just shared their stories, and we just shared ours. And I've done, so that's what I really enjoyed. And just location wise, I mean, obviously Costa Rica is beautiful in terms of nature and everything. And I went to Borneo as well. There was, I think altogether it was 4 weeks. And that was amazing because it's a massive country. It's not a country, but it's a massive island. And I knew it would be easy to get from one place to another. So just for logistical reasons, I chose to go with a company. And then again, it was nice because you would do hiking. So it was good to already know the people you were going with. So you could, just encourage each other to keep on going, because it was actually quite a bit of a stressful hike. I'm not really an avid hiker, I have to say.
Was
so,
that up, is it Mount Kinabalu? Is that
yes, that was the one. Yeah, that was the one. And
I've heard that's quite a tough hike.
It's quite a tough hike. And then it's sort of like when you're going up, you have this goal in front of you, but then once you reach it, there's not really much motivation left, if I can speak for myself. And you just have to go down, and that's actually the painful part for the knees. But then you have people along the way that sort of like, okay, keep going, and they just hug you, and they just, I know you're tired, but we're going to make this together. And I think it's quite tricky if you do it on your own or with a group that you don't know the people in. And so you sort of like you become and you grow as a little family just for the trip. And that's really just quite lovely, actually.
Do you know, that is such a true thing. When you do, especially a mountain peak, you kind of fixate on getting to the top, and then you forget all about having to come back down.
Exactly.
But it's having that kind of morale in a group that you've built a bond with before you start trekking is just so helpful. 100%.
Yes.
And it's, you mentioned there about the local living. I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of that when they think of adventure travel. They may think more of a Mount Kinabalu or a difficult trek, but adventure doesn't have to be that really physical, demanding experience. Sitting around a table with a local family, being completely immersed in their life, is also a massive adventure.
Exactly. What I do really like about the way they set up the trips and the whole itineraries is that it's not just like we're kicking off one highlight after the other that is in the guidebooks, like say we're going to climb this mountain and then we do this and then we do that. So with the Borneo trip, I mentioned that because it was one of the last ones I did before the lockdown, so it's really sort of like stuck in my mind. We started with the Kinabalu first, which was good because just it was strenuous in a way. And then we went to a little island and we did some mud bathing, which was lovely. And then we were just sitting around having dinner, and it was sort of like, again, it wasn't a host family, but it was a smaller hotel. So it felt like being with a host family. And the couple that was running the hotel, they taught us how to make little grasshoppers out of, I think it was bamboo leaves, or I don't know, it was just, it's nothing like if you tell someone, oh yeah, we make grasshoppers out of palm leaves or whatever, it sounds sort of funny, but it just adds this little extra thing to the trip and makes it more just memorable for me. And it was a lovely trip, like all the others. I went to the Philippines, I went to Palawan, and I know the Philippines are still struggling right now. And I do remember the especially the Filipino CEOs. They are just the most humble and sweet people I've met, and they were really eager to make us, have just a fantastic trip, and they were really kind. It was a lovely group, and so
Amazing.
I really like just the mix of the experience that are offered.
Well, it sounds like you've done a really good mix of different itineraries, some more active, some cultural.
Yes.
So, I mean, as I say, you must have met a lot of interesting travelers in your groups along the way. Do you keep in touch with any of those?
I do have, I do have a good friend I still keep in touch with. She was in one of the local living hiking groups back in 2017. It could have been Costa Rica as well. And I mean, some people I just loosely keep in contact via Facebook. But yes, every once in a while there really is friendship growing out of, the trip experience.
Yeah. And what about local people? You've mentioned your host family in Costa Rica and some of the CEOs, but are there any sort of particular characters that stick out in your mind from along the way?
Yes, so CEO wise, it was especially, I now that you say it, it's funny because I had a lovely CEO in Mexico, and I kept in contact with her because I came back to Mexico couple of times after the trip and just did little parts of the country. So I always contacted her. Her name is Andrea, and I said, Andrea, do you have any recommendations, or do you, and she was still, even though, our trip was, I don't know, by the time 2 or 3 years ago, she would always be like, yes, I'm gonna, contact this and this person, and I'm just gonna, ask around what the best experience could be. And so she was really dedicated, like long after the trip. So I still really dearly remember her. And again, the CEOs of the Philippines, they were really lovely people. And with the locals, the last trip I remember, it was in Ecuador, and we stayed in a little homestay and up in the mountains. And by the time I was going there, I could sort of like understand Spanish a little bit, even though they have a thicker accent because they have their local language mixed into Spanish. And we had this older, very kind and gentle lady, and she was talking about all her hardships she was going through in life, having lost her father, having to, work as a child. And I felt sort of like privileged, and then, but also sad, because I knew what she was telling us. I knew that like her struggle was real, but I couldn't really answer her. But it made me feel very humbled, because we as travelers are in a very, privileged position to be able to experience all that we are experiencing, doing all the travels that we're doing. And there's so many people out there that really have, just such a tough life, but they're still able and willing to share their experiences with us. So that's, I think that's one of the experience I wouldn't have gotten if I was, traveling by my own.
I think that that's one of the beauties of travel, is allowing us to have those really special moments of connection with local people. And as you say, it's so easily missed if you're sticking in the main cities, etc., or you're traveling by yourself. You might not have the confidence to go and stay with a local community. And
I mean, you're sort of it does sound a bit weird, but you're sort of like forced into the situation, because you're booked in a homestay. And normally, even if I was going to like aim for the same, I would be like, oh no, I can't really communicate in the local language, so I might rather not do it. But then you're there, so you have to just find your way through. And there's always a very unique experience coming out of that. So I really appreciate the fact that I was in this specific situation, in this homestay. And it sort of like shapes your mindset of what you take home once you go back. So it's always, you have your pictures, but then you also have all these memories that you can't really break down into words or into pictures.
Absolutely. And they're completely personal, I think.
Exactly.
So in terms of, I think what you said about, about getting out of your comfort zone is really prevalent, and when it comes to travel, and really important.
Yes.
Would you say that there's any other sort of times where you've really pushed your boundaries on an adventure trip?
I mean, yeah,
That's a good question.
it's a good question. I mean, it's, you push your boundaries physically, whether it be on hikes or whether it's like, going getting up early in the morning, to do, I don't know, bird watching or what, these kind of things. And it's all just, participating in sort of rafting and things I would be normally like, oh no, it's not really what I'm looking for. It's not really but it's the group dynamics that really make you go. And I think that's sort of like needed. Yeah. And you always, I just feel for myself that I'm just growing if I sort of like push my limits.
100%. I know exactly what you mean. So obviously you've done a lot of travel, and you're based in Germany, so you're very lucky that
Yes,
you're actually able to go away again. So
exactly.
what's on the agenda for you? What's up next?
So on the agenda is quite an extensive European itinerary, actually. So I'm going to start with Corfu. So that's one of the new trips. And I think it could actually be the very first one. So I'm very excited about this. And then it goes all the way along Greece, starting northern Greece, hiking northern Greece, and then go all the way down to the island of Crete, and then Cyprus and Sicily, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the Azores and Madeira.
Wow.
And yes, so I'm really excited and looking forward to that. And I think it's going to be
got the hiking bug.
yeah, I know. I know.
Oh, well, that sounds amazing. I'm feeling very jealous.
Yes.
So one thing I would really like to ask you is, if there were young women or men out there who were thinking about maybe traveling, and they're thinking, oh, shall I take a group trip? Shall I take an adventure trip? I'm not sure. What would you really say the benefits are, or the benefits that you've seen on your own experiences?
I mean, the benefits are definitely, it's all organized, and I really do recommend going, especially if you don't really have a lot of experiences in going by your own, first and foremost, but also if you don't really know, if you're not familiar yet with the country, because I think it's a massive benefit to get to know the country a bit better, and then just looking whether it's sort of like your country, place you feel like connected to. And if you want to go another time, you sort of like already know how the country works, how transportation works, how it works language wise, currency wise, and all these kind of things. And I mean, with the group, you never know, it's absolutely unpredictable, how the group dynamics are going to evolve. There's always going to be people you connect with. There's always going to be people you're sort of like, they're okay, but it's not really, say, my cup of tea. But it's part of the journey. It's part of like, normal life. And normally everyone's eager to share their stories with others and share their experiences on this trip with others. So there's always going to be common ground, I think, within the trip. And then if you make friends in within the group, that's lovely. If you don't, that's okay as well. And I would always recommend going. And it is a bit stressful, but you get a lot of out of what you booked. So I really like the whole experience. I definitely recommend. I also recommend staying some extra days just to relax and just to sort of like digest, the experience that you've made. And yeah.
That's a great tip, I think. Yeah, having that little bit at the end just to
exactly just to reflect,
be by yourself and really reflect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Susann, this is amazing. You've given me a lot of inspiration. I'm desperate to go back to Costa Rica, so you've really fanned that flame. But thank you so much for joining us today on the show, and I wish you all the best and good luck on your upcoming adventures. I hope you have an absolute blast hiking around Europe.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
We'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Changing the world just by having the time of your life sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But when you travel with Gadventures, that's exactly what you're doing. Our small group tours were built to directly benefit the people and places they visit. So on top of having an incredible, immersive, one-of-a-kind travel experience, you'll also be doing your parts to make the world a better place. Ask your travel agent or visit gadventures.com to learn more about the power of your travel plans and to book your next life-changing experience.